Hello, my name is Tobias Heiler and I'm one of the founders of BrainBoost. In this webinar, we introduce Aura, a new feature in the BrainAssistant, which is your nice little smart helper. It will, during a training or after training, automatically, or if you ask it, show you a few things that you might want to pay attention to and helps you identifying outstanding things like an alpha burst automatically. In this webinar, I will show you the first few features and there are more to follow. Have fun with it. Welcome to the webinar. Again, nice to be here. As always, we connect more and more hardware manufacturers. So if you know any hardware manufacturers, please reach out to us and let us know. And we're always happy to connect new hardware. And this is the news of this webinar. We successfully implemented a new hardware manufacturer, Wearable Sensing. As you can see, there is a version with 7 channels and there's a version with 24 channels. This is the 24-channel device. These are dry electrode devices. Also, the 7-channel is a dry electrode device. At this point, mostly in the United States, but you never know. So please reach out to us if you feel like this could be interesting for you. So yes, we now have a new hardware up here. We're currently connecting other hardware manufacturers as well. So we will keep you posted once they are really live and ready to go. Topic of today's webinar is Ask Aura. Aura is our BrainAssistant assistant. I know, maybe too many assistants at some point, but today is the launch of a new feature. It's going to be live in end of March, beginning of April, something like this. So you have to wait a little longer. We're doing some fine tuning at the moment. Today I'm going to show you the first features of Aura. What is the idea of Aura? The idea is that it's your smart automatic helper or helper generally while and after a training. So I'm going to show you a few examples how you can still already see how's the theta, alpha, beta amplitude while the training. You can see the raw EEG. So you can see a whole bunch of things. And also after training, obviously we have the auto report. So we have a lot of nice smart features, but Aura makes the BrainAssistant even smarter. So I'm going to show this to you right now. So let's go. For that, obviously, please always do your updates. This is a special version for this webinar, so I'm allowed to have so many open updates. So let's say we select a protocol. I'm going to go with the protocol F3PZ, so frontal and parietal protocol. And signal check looks great, doesn't it? And so this is what you're all used to. This is how a training screen looks like. And I'm going to start an application right away. So I'm going to go with the Media Center, for example. So when we start an application, so Media Center is running on my screen here. I'm going to put this away. So when we start an application, there are multiple things you can pay attention to. So first of all, you see here, you're used to this. It says Application Media Center, and it automatically starts a segment for you. The idea of Aura is that, as I said, it should while, but also after, maybe automatic, maybe not automatic, help you to analyze stuff, to see stuff. And here's the first thing. This has been there for quite a while, but please use it now. If you start a media center, it could be watching a movie, but it could also be maybe eyes closed, a relaxation protocol. So in order to give more info to our BrainAssistant, here's a little check if it's an eyes open training. So for example, you were watching a movie, or if it's an eyes closed media center training. So it makes perfect sense. If, for example, we auto-analyze later that your parietal alpha increased, and we see, oh, it was an eyes closed training, probably listening to music, then it makes more sense that there's more alpha. So in order to use the smart features, also at some points, we still need you to, by hand, do some stuff. So use this feature. But here's the new thing. This, I think you should have this already. And this is the first Aura feature, so it can be little things. I will come to bigger things as well. This is the first feature that helps you to get some, while training, smart little helper infos, how the training is going. Example, this shows you just the things you're training. So it shows theta, what we're training right here, parietal, oh, it's German, sorry, but parietal alpha here, frontal alpha, etc. So everything you train, it shows you some live stats. What it does is it shows you the average value of theta. So obviously here it's a mean value of F3 and PZ, right? But for example, frontal alpha, it's just on F3. So this would be just the average value of alpha in the frontal area, wherever you measured it, in this case, F3. So it shows you the average amplitude value, which is pretty cool because it shows you this per segment. So if you stop this and later you start, for example, Focus Master or another media center, whatever, then you can compare, did my theta, for example, increase and maybe the client got a little tired? Did it decrease? So maybe it was pretty nice, but high beta increased. So you will have those stats in live available, and you can then compare while the training is going how the segments, what changed maybe. THR means threshold. It says 0, 0, 0, 0. Why? Because I have 0 thresholds, all of 0. So let's change this. So obviously, I don't care how much the success rate is right now. Now it still says 0, right? Because it is a mean value. Obviously, the weight is by time. So it will now need a little bit. You see now here it says 0.5, 0.1, right? Because it's just 2.5. This is 8.7. So obviously, this is increasing faster now. So if I go like super high with something, let's go with like high beta. I'm going to go. Here you see my threshold is going to be 15 now. This will increase here. The threshold will increase rather fast because obviously this is running for 3.5 minutes and I just changed the thresholds, I don't know, 30 seconds ago. So this is going to increase. You see 1.5 now. So this is also interesting for some people that say, what was my threshold? How good or how hard was I on this person with the media center, the Focus Master, whatever. So you can see how the value was, but also what thresholds were there on average, of course. So if you switch it halfway through, of course, it will be weighted by time, show you the threshold of the entire segment, which I think is still pretty cool. So you kind of get a feeling. Some people also told me they write it down for a report. They want to watch it, how the threshold was the last time they trained. So you can go back into the sessions and take a look there. So I think it's quite nice to have a little bit of stats here. The last one, TE, stands for training effect. There's an extra webinar on the training effect. Summarizing it very quickly means if I want, for example, here theta to decrease and it does decrease, so less theta, the training effect will be a positive number. For example, the parietal alpha here, 4.4, means it actually went the direction I wanted it to go. So here it went up, so it increased. This is why there's a positive training effect. Negative would mean the theta, I wanted it to decrease, but it increased. So this is why now it's 0. So it basically on average didn't increase or decrease. Important though is if it's like a super negative number, don't panic because obviously it's influenced by artifacts. Right now, later when we analyzed a already recorded session, this will mean that we can filter stuff out by having the artifacts filtered out. Here, at this point, we're not filtering out the artifacts live. So if someone obviously creates tons of artifacts, then the training effect will be extremely negative. But it still gives you a little bit of an idea. Did it go the way it was supposed to go or did it not? So this is an example for Aura. Tiny little helper, some live stats, and a little bit of an idea. Did it go the way I wanted it to go? The next part is we have this tiny little stop button. Please use the stop button to stop a game. You can obviously also within our application, in the application, I mean, this is an easy example. Here you can press X, that's the same result. But when you close a game, you can also do this via the bottom left. It always says home, and then at some point it says exit. Important though, if you are within a game, halfway through, for example, Dragon Bay, and you just go to the taskbar at the bottom and then right click and say close, parts of the game will not be saved. And this is also a new feature. What do I mean by that? For example, if you play, I mean, many of you probably know the game Pirate Islands. Pirate Islands, you first have a ship and then you go on land and then you go on a treasure hunt. And there are mini games within the game. So for example, the character on land moves, and then at some point it needs to build together a bridge or open, I don't know, a little treasure box. And here, about positive feedback, it takes some time to fill up to fix the bridge, or with negative feedback, it will decrease. So it goes back and forth. The same here, that character is charging for a jump, either jumps when this is all filled up, or if it's decreasing, then it takes longer for the character to jump. So these are mini events. So if you quit within the game, and you just do it with right-clicking in the taskbar and then killing the game, it will not save stats about, for example, these mini charging points. If you stop the game here, it will save all these points. What will it help us? Aura can then later analyze how long did you, for example, take to charge all these in-between mini games, mini challenges. Did you have more positive feedback with the same threshold or less positive feedback with the same thresholds? Yes or no? It will also track, for example, with Dragon Bay, Dragon Bay, it's a pretty cool game. Who hasn't played it, please play it. It will track with Dragon Bay, how often did you press a button on the controller? Did you press it maybe way more than you used to the last 3 times you played it? Did you press it way more than other people do it? How often did your dragon fall down? So is it maybe something like level 3, 2, 4, whatever? Is this maybe something that is more challenging? Maybe you should play a game that is more motorically challenging for you or helping you. So this is what also Aura does in the background for you. And if you quit a game within, if you use the stop button, then it will also help you to save all this part progress. And then later we can analyze that. Another example, by the way, is when you stop a game. So I'm going to press this button in a second. By the way, this was a question yesterday in the German webinar. Here we started at 16 seconds and we will now end at 9 minutes something. I'm going to stop it. It will now say 30 seconds and 8 minutes 51. So it will shorten every segment of 15 seconds in the beginning and the end. So when you start a media center usually, or a game, you say what character do you want to play, or with the media center you maybe say, okay, we're good, and then you kind of need a little bit of time to stop it. So when we later analyze, there's also less artifacts or semi good signal quality. So this is also something where you might say, why I think I played it a little longer. Now, I think this is the main cool feature, at least in the German webinar. Most people had a lot of questions and positive feedback. We have here, you see, it's kind of hidden, a so-called burst detection. That's pretty cool. It's turned off right now. It is a mode where it just colors stuff, and it has a mode where it colors stuff and puts a box around it. I'm going to use the box. I like the box. So what does it do? It detects bursts. What kind of bursts? Not here, artifact bursts. It detects burst from, and here I'm going to go into the advanced settings mode. It detects burst from, for example, alpha or theta. Like you see right now here, it automatically, I didn't press anything, it automatically detected. Here was a lot of alpha involved in this raw EG part. So it marks it for you. I will show you some other examples in a second. Here, for example, was a nice alpha episode, so it marked alpha for you. Which is pretty cool, because some people say, here again, some people say, I'm new to neurofeedback. Here again, you see, if you're skilled with this, you can identify this was a nice alpha burst. It was on PZ, so pretty nice. I will come to this tiny little part here. So with this new burst detection, we automatically mark alpha burst, theta burst, or here you can say add, and then of course add some stuff. Here's still also alpha burst, but here's now the thing how it works, and this is where we still need like a couple of weeks to fine-tune it a little bit. It has certain conditions when it marks an alpha burst. First, and this is pretty obvious, it needs, or not obvious, but this is how it works at this point, the burst needs to be at least 1 second or longer. This is less than a second, so this is why it didn't get marked. This is longer than a second, so this is why it was marked. By the way, if you turn the box off, you see now it just says alpha and it colors it. So I like the box a little more, but I think it's personal preference. So first, the rule is the alpha burst needs to be 1 second or longer in order to be marked. The second one is, it's called baseline multiplier. So we track the entire EEG ever since you started recording and check out the mean value of alpha and theta and everything. And then the condition in order to mark it means it needs to be at least at least 1.2 times higher than the average we just measured. So this is because it needs to be a burst. But important, there's a second condition that also needs to be true at the same time. It needs to, because imagine here, for example, if there's an artifact, it would mark obviously everything, because everything, if you create a strong muscle artifact, everything is a way higher the amplitude, right? Because you have a strong muscle artifact. So in order that it's not just everything needs to be 1.2 times higher, the relative power, here you see now it marked alpha, but without a box around it. So I'm going to switch to the box. I like the box. The same time, in order that it doesn't just mark a strong artifact, just this specific this specific frequency band here needs also to be 35%, so 0.35, 35% of the relative power. So if you imagine, I will come to that later, if you imagine a FFT analysis, there needs to be actually more from a threshold more from an amplitude perspective, plus it needs to be at least 35% of all brain cells working just in this frequency bands. So if everything goes up, no marking, because then everything, it's not just specifically alpha. So here, this means that it's just alpha is 35% of all brain cells working in alpha. And this means that it's also generally higher than before. I know it sounds maybe a little bit confusing, but I think, or I hope it makes sense. Now, obviously, we can say add and then generate our own frequency band, give it a name, give it a different color, etc. So I think this is pretty cool. Of course, you can also use this while doing QEEG recordings, which is also pretty cool, right? If you have 19 channels or 24 channels, and then the client closes his eyes and then you see, oh, wow, now I see all the alpha or theta or whatever you wanna hear it to be. And now I'm gonna show you a really cool thing. This also, let's check out a recording. This also works here. Oh, beautiful. So let's take this one. This is a recording here, and we see eyes open and then eyes closed, and we see there's a lot of slow activity coming. And maybe, I mean, this is extremely obvious, this case, but maybe if you want to learn how to read QEEGs and raw EEGs, you can also, here at the bottom, you see, let's use the box detection. Now it's calculating a little bit, and you can then see it now marked alpha for us. I mean, this is an extremely obvious case, but still, if we proceed, yeah, there's a lot of alpha, obviously. Then stop to have some alpha, and we see now there's less alpha. So let's see, here it starts again. So I think it's a pretty cool feature also if you deal with raw EEGs and QEEGs to have a better time to identifying stuff. What you can also do is, in this case, for example, is this more alpha 1, alpha 2, both? Of course, what you could now do is, let's say we use this as this is our alpha, let's call it alpha 2, for example, right? And let's say alpha 2 is from 10 to 12 hertz. We could give it a new color, right? Orange, for example. I'm doing a little bit, playing around a little bit. So we now, I just click to refresh it. So this is alpha 2. And now we could say, let's add another one. This would be now our alpha 1. I think you get the idea. So let's keep this one blue. And alpha 1 would be obviously 8 to 10 hertz. Okay. And yeah, now we see, of course, they're laid over each other. So we might do some fine tuning here, but we see mostly this seems to be alpha. Here's alpha. Remember, blue is alpha. Sorry. Here we go. Now it's better. This looks more like alpha. Yeah, this looks more like alpha 2 dominance. So there's barely any alpha 1. None, to be fair. Here's some alpha 1, you see. So this is all seems to be alpha 2 and barely any alpha 1. So maybe this is pretty nice for some people to learn how to deal with raw EEG. So you see it's also in a standstill image, maybe a nice tool to work with. Of course, We could change here the baseline multiplier and the threshold to make it like super sensitive, which doesn't make too much sense. I will give you an example. So let's say alpha should just be the same, so not 1.2, and should be detected with when it's 10% maybe of the relative power. So obviously you see now we have it's way too sensitive. This doesn't make sense. So of course you can play around here a little bit. We will write a manual, but this is why we do a little bit of fine tuning right now. One more feature. So I think this was now the most exciting feature, but one more feature. Finally, what we did is if you go into a recording and EEG statistics, you can now choose segments and multiple segments. So I chose eyes open and eyes closed. I chose position FC, ZZ, and PZ. And guess what? We finally have FC, ZZ, PZ. And here's eyes open, eyes open, eyes open. And here's the same position, but with the other segment. It could be any. It doesn't need to be eyes open, eyes closed. This is now the segment eyes open and eyes closed, and you can nicely compare them now. By the way, we see here this is alpha 10 to 12 hertz, so it makes sense that alpha 2, it is a very alpha 2 dominant EEG with eyes closed. So this is why it marked alpha 2, or you remember the orange, alpha 2 extremely and just barely alpha 1. So kind of makes sense that it was extremely orange, remember. And that's pretty cool if you want to see what happened during eyes open, eyes closed, and you can compare it directly. Also, what we see here is segment differences. So here we see, not a surprise, that alpha increased dramatically here. Alpha 2 plus 470%. Obviously, there's a lot of alpha going on. So I think this is also pretty nice stats. This is what we also mean with Aura. After a session is a standstill, we also have unified Y scales. So if I uncheck this, now this goes on, for example, until to 2, this goes to 3. This is how it used to be. And if we unify now, we don't compare apple and oranges. Also, you can add those to the report. So maybe this is of interest for you. I like this one better, but you can also say horizontal layout and then FC's left and right. Could also make sense. So sorry, don't wanna tell you what to do. So yeah, I think this is also a pretty nice feature. I like it a lot to compare it. You can still change the scaling by hovering and then using a mouse wheel, and you see, and then holding and then double clicking your mouse wheel to go back in the scaling. So right clicking to drag it along, double clicking with your mouse wheel, you go back to the original scaling. So I think since the FFT spectrum analysis is a pretty nice feature and more people use it, we also extended this one for you. Yeah, let's go to the slides. Let's go back. So this is a feature with the stop button. Make sure if you quit a game within the game, use the stop button. It will save stats, and there will be more features to come, how to deeply analyze games and behavior. Yeah, here we have the live stats. Maybe you want to take a sneak peek on that and take a look and enjoy that. Please don't feel overwhelmed if there are too many numbers. Some people say it's getting too technical. Yeah, you can basically just ignore it, hopefully. If you don't like it too much, then the automatic alpha detection, you can imagine if you do a live recording, it's also pretty cool to then see how the alpha gets marked, and then you get a nice idea, okay, actually this is a pretty good deal. Or if I just showed you recordings with a lot of alpha, if theta, for example, pops up, so there's too much theta, then you see theta bursts. Here it's not in the picture. This is also pretty cool. So it makes it easier also for live, but also post analysis. And here we also saw that I just showed you the spectrum analysis, the before and after, the different segments, and it could be other segments as well. So sometimes I do a recording with manual segments. So I say eyes open or eyes closed, then I say now start meditating or breathing exercise. So also you can compare more than just eyes open, eyes closed. Yeah, today I was going through pretty fast, but there is more to come with Aura, and so I'm excited to show you even more in next webinars. I started this last webinar. Of course, it's always nice to also get good Google reviews, so feel free to also give us a nice ranking in Google. That would be pretty nice and help us.